Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra Unit 8B Review number 2. Remember to show all your work. Solve the following quadratic equations, if possible, by using an appropriate method from the list below. Simplify fractions if possible, otherwise round to the nearest tenth or hundredth. Okay, so let's take a look. Starting with number 1, what do we have to do? Well, the nice thing is this is technically already factored, okay? So anything that has an x or a variable, we set equal to 0. So we would set x plus 6 equal to 0, and then 2x minus 3 equal to 0. And then solve. Starting with the left, you would subtract 6 to both sides, and we get that x equals negative 6. And then on the right, when we're solving, first thing we would do is add 3 to both sides, and we get 2x equals 3. Variable's not by itself yet, so then we would divide by 2, and we get that x equals 3 over 2. So what are our two answers? Well, x equals negative 6 and 3 over 2. All right, number 2. How are we supposed to solve number 2? Remember, the first thing we always check to see is if we can factor. And there is a GCF. Okay, I can take out a 6x. That comes out front. And then what's left over? Well, 6x squared divided by 6x is x, and then negative 12x divided by 6x is negative 12. Sorry, I said the answer. Negative 72x divided by 6 is negative 12. And then it's the same thing that we just did. Everything with the variable, we set equal to 0. All right, so why don't you guys pause the video and see if you can solve this on your own. Good luck. Okay, and you should have gotten 0 and 12 as your answers. Okay, let's look at number 3. Now, if I were solving number 3, the first thing that I notice is there are no linear term. Okay, so if there's no linear term, I'm going to use SADMAP. I'm going to use my inverses to do this. All right, so inverse operations, I'm going to get rid of subtraction with addition, and I have x squared equals 49. Next step is to take the square root. And remember, when I take the square root of a number, it can be a positive or a negative. And the square root of 49 is 7. So our answer is x equals plus or minus 7. Okay, number 4. Now, for number 4, there are two ways you could solve this. Okay, it's not inverses because there's a linear term. But you can either factor or you could use the quadratic formula. It's however you want to do it. Okay, I think factoring is easy for this one. Okay, I checked to see if there's a GCF. There isn't. So I want numbers that multiply to get to negative 24 and add to get to negative 10. Okay, so if you need to go off to the side and write all the factors of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Just remember that it's got to work for both cases. Okay, one of those needs to be negative. And since my leading coefficient is 1, I can just plug it in. X plus 2, x minus 12 equals 0. Everything with a variable we set equal to 0. So we get x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 12 equals 0, and then we get that x equals negative 2 and positive 12. Now, if you wanted to do the quadratic formula, a would be equal to 1, b would be equal to negative 10, and c would equal negative 24. Okay, and you should get the same answer. If you didn't, you did something wrong with the formula. All right, number 5. Now, why do I want to use inverses for this? Yeah, there's no linear term. So let's go ahead and start solving. So I'm going to cancel addition with subtraction. And we get 9x squared equals negative 81. Now the x isn't by itself yet, so I can't take the square root. So I divide by 9. And I got x squared equals negative 9. What happens when I square root this? Yeah, you can't square root a negative, guys. So our answer is no real solution. Okay, number 6. Is it set equal to 0? Nope, we gotta do that first. So I'm gonna subtract the 3x over, and we get 7x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. There's no GCF. I can multiply a times c and try to think of numbers that multiply to get to negative 28 and add to get to negative 3. I can't think of those numbers off my head. 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Is there a way to get, yeah, look, 4 and 7. One of them has to be negative, and it's going to be the 7. So we can go through and split the middle term. So we got 7x squared plus 4x minus 7x minus 4 equals 0. So the way I'm solving this now is I am factoring. Now, once again, if you want to go at this point right here and just do the quadratic formula, you couldn't do that. Okay, that is your choice. Now, the GCF of my first group is x, so the x comes out front, and I'm left with 7x plus 4. Now, in the back, the only thing that they have in common is a negative 1. I can pull a negative 1 out, and I get 7x plus 4. Those match, so we get 7x plus 4 is 1. Our other one is x minus 1. And then everything with a variable we set equal to 0. So I'm going to let you guys do that on your own. Go ahead and pause the video, and good luck. Okay, and there are your two answers, x equals negative 4 over 7 and x equals 1. Okay, Now, if you're doing the quadratic, you should have plugged in A is 7, B is -3, and C as -4. You would have gotten your same answers because I actually did this problem first, the quadratic formula, because I couldn't think of the factors. But then I saw my answers. I'm like, oh, I could have solved this another way. So it's possible to do both. Okay. On the back side, let's look at number 7. Okay. So the first thing I notice about number 7 is, yeah, everything's not on the same side. Okay. So I need to move my 5x squared to the other side. So it is set equal to 0. 5x squared plus 5x minus 10. Now, I can take out a GCF. They all have a 5 in them. So my 5 goes out front, and now we're left with x squared plus 1x minus 2 equals 0. And I want to see how you guys choose to solve this. You can factor this, or you can use quadratic formula. I would factor. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, and good luck. Okay, so the numbers that multiply to get to -2 and add to get to 1 are -1 and 2. And then after solving that, we get x equals -2 and x equals 1. So just remember, at this point, everything that has a variable gets set equal to 0, okay? So that's why after I factor out that 5, I'm kind of done with it. I don't need it right now, okay? All right, let's look at number 5. Now 5 is set up for inverses. Why don't you guys pause the video and see if you can solve this all on your own. Good luck. Okay, so I had to divide each side by 5 and then take the square root. So we get x equals plus or minus 5. Alrighty. No, not number 10. We have to do number 9 first. So the nice thing about number 9 is it's already set equal to 0. So the first thing we want to check to see if we can factor it. Are there numbers that multiply to get to -3 and add to get to 7? Nope. Nothing I can think of. So what that means is quadratic formula. Okay? So A equals 3, B equals 7, and C equals -1. Do you want me to sing it? X equals the opposite of B. No, I'm not going to sing it like that the entire time. Okay, so plus or minus the square root, minus 4 AC, all divided by, that's right, 2A. So let's go ahead and start plugging in all of those numbers. We get 7, 7, 3, -1, and then 3 on the bottom. Okay? So the opposite of 7 is -7, plus or minus the square root. We got to figure that out. And on the bottom, 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, so let's take out our calculators. We have to do the discriminant. The discriminant, once again, is the part underneath the square root. So we have 7 squared minus 4 times A times C. And we get 61. Okay, so 61 is the number that goes underneath the square root. So I know this is where we can split that -7 plus the square root of 61 divided by 6 is an answer, and then -7 minus the square root of 61 divided by 6 is your answer. So why don't you go ahead and do those in your calculator and see what you get. Okay, good luck. And guess what? We're going to do it together. Okay, so we have -7 plus the square root of 61. Okay, that's what I want to do first. I'm going to get this funky number, and then I want to divide that by 6. And what do I get? Remember, we need to round that, so that's going to be 0.14. Okay, up, and I rounded it. Okay, I'm probably going to have to round this one too. So let's go ahead and do that one together too. We have -7 minus, nope, square root of 61. Find out what that equals. And then I'm going to take that number and divide it by 6. And we get -2.4, yeah, -2.47. So as I write my answer here, make sure I'm putting them in order. Okay, number 10. Now don't get confused because these are all flip-flopped, okay? It's in vertex form, okay? It's got the parentheses. That means I'm going to use sedmap. Okay, so let's go through it. Cancel the addition or the subtraction first with addition. 81 plus 19 is 100. So 100 equals 4 parentheses x plus 3 quantity squared. Next, I want to get rid of that 4. It's multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division. 100 divided by 4 is 25. X plus 3 quantity squared. To get rid of the square root, or the exponent, I take the square root. So we get plus or minus 5 equals x plus 3. And now the last thing we have to do is subtract 3 to both sides. But the way this looks is I have plus or minus 5 minus 3 equals x. I have to break that down. So I have a -5 minus 3, and then I have a +5 minus 3. That's going to get us our two answers of -8 and 2. So x equals -8 and 2. All right, now we're almost done. Go ahead and read it and see how many of these you can get done yourself. Let's see, I'm just going to highlight this right here. T is the time in seconds. H is the height in feet. Okay. All right. Good luck. Ooh, I caught a typo. Hopefully by now yours doesn't say this. Okay. But that should be, yeah, that should be Flowerpot. Okay. Well, why don't we just draw the picture together? Drawing pictures is fun. Okay. So here's Tracy looking out her apartment door window. There she is. She's got her little hair. And there is a flower pot. So there's our flower pot. And it's got a green flower. And what happens to it? Yeah, it gets knocked off. And it goes crash. So there we go. There's our little picture. So how far above the ground will the flower pot be after 1 second? So remember, we want to know what is the H and what is the time. So they told us 1 second, so that means we're trying to find the height, and the T is 1. So we would go ahead and plug in and find out what the height is. Okay? So why don't you guys go ahead and do that right now. I'm doing it on my calculator. Are you? -16 times 1 squared plus 144. Did you get it? Well, tell me what it is. I got, whoop, you don't need to see my email. I got that the height is 128 feet. Okay, so how long will it take for the flower pot to reach a height of 64 feet? So now they're telling me that the height is 64 and we have to find the time. So, sorry guys, I hit the sneeze. So we know that the height is 64, and then we're going to set that equal to -16t squared plus 144. Okay, now we can solve this a couple different ways. All right, we can use inverses, we can try to factor. I think SADMAP's going to be the best way to do this. So I'm going to move the 64 to the other side, and I got 0 equals -16t squared, and then I have 144 minus 64, which gives us 80. I want to have a positive quadratic term, so I'm going to add the 16t squared to the other side, and I get 16t squared equals 80. To get the t by itself, I have to divide both sides. 80 divided by 16 is 5. And then the last thing we have to do is take the square roots. And the square root of 5 is 2.2. Yeah, make sure you round that. 2.24 seconds. Now, technically there are 2 answers there. Why am I only caring about that one? Oop, there are my boys. Yeah, you can't have email getaway. You can't have negative time, okay? All right, last one. How long will it take for the flower pot to hit the ground? Well, they didn't tell us anything here. Yeah, they did. They told us the height. What's the height of the ground? Good, the height of the ground is 0, okay? So we got 0 equals -16t squared plus 144. And now you guys are all on your own. How are you going to solve this? Inverses. Okay, pause the video and good luck. Okay, and when it's all said and done, you should be getting that the t equals 3 seconds. Okay, well that's everything for the Unit 8B review number 2. This is pretty much a practice test. Okay, your test tomorrow is going to look very similar to this. Okay, Now, if you have any questions or need extra help, please come find Ms. Carranza or myself. We would love to help you out. Otherwise, this is Mr. Grice signing off for Algebra Unit 8B Review number 2. Thanks for watching.